Good day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this Level 2 Cricket South Africa umpiring course hosted by Western Province Cricket Umpires Association. My name is Abdullah Steenkamp, and my co-presenter for this evening is Tomo Karosi. The format of tonight's lecture will be as follows. I will kick off, and I'll do laws 11 till 15. I'll then take a single and hand over the strike to Tom. He will then cover laws 15 to 18. So kicking off tonight's lecture, law 11, intervals. So in this course, we're covering more day cricket, like test match cricket as an example, that spans over 5 days. So yes, play starts at 10 and it goes till 5 o'clock. And players do need to deserve breaks, and that's where the intervals comes in. And these intervals are set by the governing body of international cricket, which is the International Cricket Council. And in test matches, there are your lunch interval, there are your drinks interval, your tea interval, there's a change of innings interval, there's also an interval between close of play on day 1 and the start of play on day 2. Tonight, we're going to focus on the lunch and the tea interval, and in particular, the flexibility that the lawmakers brought into these intervals. Many years ago, there was no flexibility. If lunchtime was 12 o'clock, we will have lunch at 12, and let's say tea was at 3, we'll have tea at 3, and no matter what happens, those are the timings for the intervals. But lawmakers realized that they need to bring in a bit of flexibility, and this flexibility was brought in to maximize play, to try to get as much play as possible into each day. So let's look at the flexibility and start with lunchtime that the lawmakers brought into when it comes to our lunch interval. So let's say in our test match, lunch is at 12 o'clock. So lunch is 40 minutes. So from 12 till 12:40, that will be our lunchtime. That's our fixed lunchtime. So let's see the first flexibility that the lawmakers brought into when it comes to our lunch interval. Firstly, if an innings ends 10 minutes or less to lunch, we will take lunch immediately. Lunch will be then 40 minutes. We will then incorporate or include our change of innings into our lunch interval. So that's the theory. Let me give you an example of how this theory works. So our lunch is at 12 o'clock. Let's say South Africa plays Sri Lanka in a test match. Sri Lanka batting first. We get to 11:53. Or let's say on the morning of day 2, 11:53. The 10th Sri Lankan wicket falls. Sri Lanka is now dismissed at 11:53. What happens now next? And this is where law 11.5.1 comes in. If an innings ends 10 minutes or less to lunch, we will take lunch immediately. So in my example, the Sri Lankan innings ended 11:53, which is 7 minutes to go to lunch, which is 10 minutes or less. We will then take lunch immediately. So lunch will be taken at 11:53. Lunch will be the agreed duration of 40 minutes in test matches. So lunch will be from 11:53, and the first ball after lunch will be bowled at 12:33. And that 10 minutes interval between innings, we will incorporate or include that into our lunch interval. So this is the first bit of flexibility that the lawmakers brought into when it comes to our lunch. We're trying to maximize, instead of wasting time, we're saving a bit of time. We take lunch immediately for 40 minutes and we'll restart after 40 minutes. Next, bit of flexibility that the lawmakers brought into when it comes to our lunch interval. If players needs to leave the field due to ground, weather, light, or exceptional circumstances, when there are 10 minutes or less to go to our lunch, we will take lunch immediately. Lunch will then be our agreed duration of 40 minutes. Play will then resume after our 40-minute lunch if weather conditions permit. So that's the theory. Let's look at a practical example. Again, our Sri Lankan South Africa test match. Let's say the morning of day 3. We know lunch is at 12 o'clock. At 11:55, it starts raining. Umpires then calls for the ground staff to bring on the covers and ask the players to leave the field. 11:55. It's now 5 minutes to go to lunch. What happens? Do we wait till 12 o'clock for us to take lunch? No. The law guides us. The law tells us if, because of adverse conditions, whether it's ground weather or light, in my example, it's weather. It starts raining 5 minutes to lunch at 11:55. So what will now happen? Because this is 10 minutes or less to go to our lunch interval, we will take lunch immediately. So at 11:55, as soon as the players leaves the field, we'll inform everyone that it's now 11:55. We will take lunch immediately. Lunch will then be for 40 minutes from 11:55 until 12:35. First ball after lunch to be bowled at 12:35. Obviously, weather conditions permit. If it's still raining, then obviously we can't restart. But stopped raining and we can restart at 12:35. We will. So these are the flexibility that the lawmakers brought into when it comes to our lunch interval. So our innings ends, but it must be 10 minutes or less. If it rains, 10 minutes or less to go to lunch, we can take an early lunch. So let's look at our tea interval, and let's look at the flexibility that the lawmakers brought into when it comes to our tea interval. Firstly, let's say our tea is at 3 o'clock. So if an innings ends 30 minutes or less to tea, we will take tea immediately. Tea will be our agreed duration, and in Test match cricket, tea is 20 minutes. So we'll have tea for 20 minutes, and then we will include or incorporate our 10-minute change of innings interval into our tea interval. So that's the theory. Let's use a practical example. Again, our Sri Lanka, South Africa Test match. Let's say the day 1, and let's say tea is at 3 o'clock. So at 14:40, South Africa 10th wicket falls. 14:40. So what happens now? Here's where we activate law 11.6.1, which tells us if an innings ends 30 minutes or less to tea, we will take tea immediately. And in my example, 14:40, with tea being at 3 o'clock, it is now 20 minutes to go till tea. So we can activate this clause. We will take tea at 14:40. And in test matches, tea is 20 minutes. So first ball after tea to be bowled at 1500 hours. And that 10-minute change of innings, we will include it into our tea interval, and Sri Lanka will face the first ball in their first innings at 1500 hours. So you'll notice 6.1, it's exactly the same as for lunch. Principle is the same. Just the only difference between if an innings ends close to lunch or tea, in lunchtime, it was 10 minutes if an innings ends. We'll take an early lunch. With tea, same principle, but here the law allows for slightly longer period. Here it's 30 minutes or less to go to tea. And if an innings ends, we'll take an early tea. Let's see more flexibility that the lawmakers brought into when it comes to our tea interval. So if 30 minutes remains before the agreed time for tea and we already in a change of innings interval, now law tell us we need to resume play at the end of the 10-minute change of innings interval. That's the theory. Let's look at a practical example. Again, our South Africa-Sri Lanka test match. Let's say it's the afternoon of day 2. Tea is at 3 o'clock. At 14:25, South Africa gets dismissed. 14:25. So at this time, can we take an early tea? No, we cannot. Why? If we look at clause 11.6.1, we'll see if an innings ends 30 minutes or less till tea, we can then activate clause point 1. But in my example, with South Africa being dismissed at 14:25, this is 35 minutes to go till tea. So we cannot activate clause 1. We at 14:25, seeing it's 35 minutes to go till tea, we now need to first have a 10-minute change of innings interval. So from 14:25 up until 14:35 will be our change of innings interval. First ball to Sri Lankan openers will be bowled at 14:35. We will then play for 25 minutes and take tea at our usual time of 1500 hours. Next bit of flexibility that the lawmakers brought into our tea interval. If due to adverse conditions of ground weather, light, or exceptional circumstances, and I'll use in my example after we gone through the theory of rain, if due to these adverse conditions and it happens 30 minutes or less to go to tea, we can take an early tea. But it must be 30 minutes to go till tea. Again, slightly different to our lunch. Our lunch was, if it rains 10 minutes to go to lunch, we can take an early lunch. Tea, slightly longer. Tea, 30 minutes or less to go to tea. If it rains, we'll take an early tea. Let's use a practical example. In our Sri Lankan South Africa test match, day 3, we know tea is at 1500 hours. At 14:45, it starts to rain while Sri Lanka was batting. Let's say Sri Lanka's on 200 for 2. Umpires then asked the ground staff to bring on the covers. This is now at 14:45. We know tea is at 3 o'clock. So now what happens? And this is where we can activate this clause, point 3. Because it's less than 30 minutes to go till tea, we can take an early tea. So we'll inform everyone that at 14:45, it will be tea time. It will be tea for 20 minutes. So play will resume, obviously weather permitting, if it needs to stop raining, and play will resume 20 minutes later at 15:05. The first ball of the tea needs to be rebuilt. So again, these are time-saving mechanism, flexibility that the lawmakers brought into our lunch and our tea interval to maximize play. Lastly, when it comes to maximizing our lunch or our tea interval, if a side is 9 wickets down, but the side must be 9 wickets down, emphasis on 9 wickets down, and we get to close to our lunch or our tea interval, we get to our lunch or our tea interval, the law tells us if a side is 9 down and we get to our lunch or our tea interval, we will not take our lunch or our tea. We will extend that session for a max of 30 minutes. We will give the fielding side the opportunity to try to get the 10th wicket, but only a max of 30 minutes. So if they can take it within the 30 minutes, as soon as they take that 10th wicket, we will take lunch or tea. If they cannot take it in 30 minutes, as I said, we'll only allow a max of 30 minutes. So after 30, they couldn't take the 10th wicket, we will then need to take tea after extending the session for 30 minutes. Okay, so that's the theory. Let me give you 2 examples to explain how this theory works. The first example, I'll use lunch, and the second example, I use the tea interval. But this clause applies to both the lunch and the tea interval. And again, emphasizing the side must be 9 wickets down. So my first example, 12 o'clock. We know we need to take lunch. South Africa is batting on the morning of day 2, and we get to 12 o'clock. The final ball of the over gets bowled. The umpire look at his or her watch. They see it's 12 o'clock. But the scoreboard reads South Africa is on 347 for 9 when we reach 12 o'clock. Do we take lunch, seeing that it is 12 o'clock, because the official time for lunch is 12 o'clock? No. The lawmakers tell us we need to activate this clause 11.7. Because South Africa is 9 wickets down, we need to extend this morning session by a max of 30 minutes. So we will not take lunch at 12 o'clock. We will see if Sri Lanka can take the 10th South African wicket. And let's say they do take the 10th South African wicket at 12:10. So now what will happen at 12:10? We will inform everyone that it is lunch now at 12:10. So lunch will be 40 minutes. So from 12:10 till 12:50 will be our lunch. We will incorporate the change of innings interval into our lunch interval, and first ball to the Sri Lankan openers will be bowled at 12:50. So that's example 1. Example 2, let me use tea as an example here. So let's say our tea is at 3 o'clock. Now let's say Sri Lanka is batting. We get to 3 o'clock and Sri Lanka is 500 for 9. Do we take tea time? No, we don't, because the law tells us we need to activate this clause 11.7. Because Sri Lanka is 9 down, we need to extend the session by a max of 30 minutes to see if South Africa can take that 10th Sri Lankan wicket. So let's say we get to 3 o'clock, we extend the session. We now get to 15:30, and South Africa still did not take the 10th Sri Lankan wicket. So what do? Do we play on? No. We get to 15:30. End of the over. It's 15:30 now. We now need to call overtime and tea. The law only allows for the session to be extended by a max of 30 minutes. Seeing that South Africa could not take the 10th Sri Lankan wicket in that 30 minutes, we will take tea at 15:30. Tea will be 20 minutes. So from 15:30 till 15:50 will be our tea interval. Law 12 covers the start of play and the cessation of play. There's 2 subsections that I want to cover in Law 12. The first subsection is the completion of an over. So we know the fielding side needs to try to bowl as many overs in a session as they can. So in Test match cricket, sessions are 2 hours. So let's say day 1, play starts at 10 o'clock. We know lunch is at 12 o'clock. So the fielding side between 10 and 12 needs to try to get as many overs in as possible. So now what happens? We know lunch is at 12 o'clock. So what happens? We get to 12 o'clock and we've only bowled 2 balls in the over. Do we take lunch? Because we know lunch is at 12 o'clock, but with 2 balls into the over. And here's where the law guides us when it comes to completion of the over. So in my example, if we now reach 12 o'clock, but we've bowled 2 balls in the over, do we walk off and say, players, let's go off and have some lunch? No, we don't. The law wants us to first complete that over. And only after completing the over, then we can take lunch. There is an exception, and we'll get to it later in the slide, but I want to just use an example or elaborate on my example to illustrate how 12.5.1 works. So lunch is at 12. We got to 12 and we 2 balls into the over. So now we've just saw in point 1, we cannot take lunch. We first need to complete the over. So first that 4 balls needs to be bowled. So now the bowler completes the 4 balls, and let's say we get to 12:03 when the umpire calls over, time and lunch. So we took lunch at 12:03. So we know lunch needs to be 40 minutes. So first ball after lunch to be bowled at 12:43. So I said there was a but. in terms of law point 1 tell us we cannot stop mid-over. We need to complete the over before we can take lunch or tea. But what is that but? And that but is, if we get to a scenario where with less than 3 minutes to go to your interval, whether it's lunch or tea, so less than 3 minutes to go to tea, a batter is either dismissed or a batter retires or players needs to leave the field, and this happens during the over. So if this happens, what needs to happen? We need to take then our lunch or our tea immediately. Yes, if it happens mid-over, we will complete the over when play resumes after our lunch or our tea interval. Okay, that's the theory. Let me give you a practical example to illustrate how the theory works. Let's use lunch as an example. The same principle will apply to tea, but I'll use lunch in my example. So our lunch in our test match is at 12 o'clock. Let's say Sri Lanka is batting at the time. This is now day 2. Sri Lanka is currently on 600 for the loss of 6 wickets. And we get to 11:58 and a new over starts. So it's 11:58. It's 2 minutes to go to lunch. And a bowler starts a new over. First ball of that over, the bowler clean bowls the Sri Lankan batter. What now happens next? Umpire look at his watch and they see it's 11:58. So what happens? And this is where we need to activate clause 12.5.2. Because it's less than 3 minutes to go to our lunch interval when this 7th Sri Lankan wicket fell, we need to take lunch immediately. So yes, a ball was bowled, so we're technically in the over, but because it's less than 3 minutes to go to lunch and because a batter was dismissed, we can take lunch immediately. So lunch was taken at 11:58. So the first ball after lunch needs to be bowled at 12:38. But remember, the batter was dismissed at the first ball of the over. So there were still 5 balls left in the over. So what happens with that 5 balls? That does not disappear after lunch. We first need to complete that 5 balls. And after completing that 5 balls, the umpire will then call over and then a new over to start. But you can only activate this clause if a wicket falls or a batter retires with less than 3 minutes to go. So if a wicket falls at, let's say, 11:56, this is now 4 minutes to go to lunch, we cannot take an early lunch. We cannot activate this clause. We will allow the new batter to come in. It must be less than 3 minutes to activate this clause. The second subsection under Law 12 that I want to cover is last hour of the match and how many overs needs to be bowled. I'm touching on this because those of you that's going to join us for level 3, we will go into lots of detail when about with regards to the last hour of the match. I'm just giving you an idea how this concept works, how this concept of the last hour works, when is this last hour, and what the law wants the fielding side to do in this last hour. So, this concept of the last hour is only found on the last day of the match. In our test match, we know test matches spans over 5 days, or 99% of them spans over 5 days. So on day 5, hours of play in our test match is from 10 till 5. So on day 5, we know close of play is at 5 o'clock. When we get to 4 o'clock, we've now reached our last hour of our test match. Our last hour of our match has now been reached. So at 4 o'clock, we've reached our last hour. Now the law wants a minimum of 20 overs to be bowled in this last hour. The law wants things to be fair between the batting and the bowling side. So according to the laws of cricket, in the last hour of our test match, 20 overs minimum to be bowled by the fielding side. Again, when those of you that are going to join us for level 3, we'll go into lots of details when it comes to this last hour. For now, I just want to give you an idea that and this concept of and how it works. That yes, there is this concept of last hour of the match. You find it on the last day of your game, and as soon as you get to an hour to go till the close of play, like in my test match, 4 o'clock is is an hour to go till the close of play. We will then activate our last hour of the match. We activate it by showing everyone, the scorers and everyone, by pointing to our risk. That is the signal for the last hour. Now everyone knows, according to the law, that a minimum of 20 overs needs to be bowled. Law 13 covers the innings. Also two subsections I'm covering here. First subsection is, when is an innings completed? 5 instances. Let's look at the first one. As soon as the side is all out, the innings of that particular side is completed. Secondly, if at a fall of a wicket or a batter retires, there are still balls to be bowled, but there's no batters to come in. That also indicates that the innings is completed. Just to give an example of how this works, let's say the opening bat was wrapped on the finger and retired her to have his or her finger looked at, and let's say the finger was broken. The opening bowler, the opening bat is then injured, cannot grip a bat, won't be able to bat later on. So in my example, with the opening bat not able to bat, we get to, as soon as the 9th wicket falls, so yes, there's still a wicket left, which is this of the opening batter, but due to the finger being broken, he or she is not able to come out to bat. And because of this, even though the side is only 9 wickets down, this now indicates that the innings of this side is completed as per the law. As soon as a captain declares the innings close, and we'll get to what a declaration is in law 15, which is later this evening. So as soon as the captain indicates to his or her batters that I'm declaring the innings, that innings is then closed. Innings of that side is seen as per the law as completed. Even if a side is 700 for the loss of 2 wickets, soon as the captain declares, innings is completed. Same principle will apply as soon as a captain forfeits an innings. Soon as that forfeiture happens, innings is seen as per the law as completed. And then lastly, the law allows for flexibility when it comes to allowing teams to agree before the game start to limit innings to a number of overs or to a period of time. There is this flexibility that is allowed under the laws, and if the playing conditions or the agreement before the game allows for these agreement, like let's say the agreement was your first innings only to be 100 overs max. Soon as we could get to 100 overs, that your innings is then done. If that type of arrangement was in place before the game starts, now the law tells us, as soon as the prescribed number of overs has been bowled, like in my example, as soon as the team reached 100 overs in their innings, even if they were 500 for 5, yes, there are still batters to come in, but the prescribed number of overs has been bowled, that innings is now seen as completed. The other side will now go bat in their first innings, and they will also be allowed to face 100 overs. The same principle will apply to if a time period was put to an innings, like your first innings only to be 3 hours or 4 hours, whatever the case may be, same principle to apply. Secondly, toss. So when it comes to the toss, let's have a look at who needs to be at the toss. Where does this toss needs to take place? And what is the timings of the toss? The law guides us, and the law tells us firstly who needs to be there. Firstly, non-negotiable. Captains, both captains needs to be there. Who else needs to be there? Preferably both umpires, but the law allows for only one umpire to be there. Preferably both, but if only one is available, no issue, that one can supervise the toss. So in terms of who needs to be there, both captains and at least one umpire. Where does the toss take place? According to the law, anywhere on the field of play. So where is anywhere on the field of play? As soon as you put your foot over the boundary rope, that is technically you stepped onto the field of play. So technically the toss can take place inside the boundary rope, according to the law. But we all know, and it's been custom for as long as I can remember, that toss to take place right next to the match pitch on the square. That is custom. That is where, if you see on TV, if you see the toss takes place, and in all the games or most of the games that I've done, toss to takes place right next to the match pitch. But again, that is custom. That's where we do it for centuries now. But according to law, it can happen anywhere on the field of play. And lastly, when it comes to the toss, when does it happen? There's a 15-minute window period for the toss. 5 minutes. So let's say our test match starts at 10 o'clock. So toss needs to happen between 9:30 and 9:45. So can toss happen at 9:30? Yes, it can. Can it happen at 9:33? It can. Can it happen at 9:40? Yes, it can. At 9:45, yes, it can. It's still in that 15-minute window period. Can you toss at 9:47? No, you cannot. It's only 15 minutes. Can you toss at 9:28? Cannot. It needs to happen within this 15-minute window period, and depending on when your game starts, like in my example, our test match started at 10 o'clock. So that 15-minute window period for 10 o'clock start is 9:30 and until 9:45. Also, as soon as the toss is done, the captain winning the toss needs to inform the opposing captain and the umpires immediately whether they're going to bat or bowl. They cannot tell you, umpire, just give me a second. Let me first go discuss this with my coach and my teammates. I'll get back to you. No, you as umpires will tell the captain, no, captain, you need to tell us immediately whether you're going to bowl or bat. You needed to have this discussion before you came to the toss. So tell us, bat or bowl? You're going to bat? Okay, happy. You happy you're saying you're going to bat? And then the law also tell us, as soon as you've notified the opposing captain and the umpires, you're going to bat. That decision then cannot be changed. Penultimate law that I'm covering before handing over to Tom. So in modern cricket, like Test match cricket, there is this concept in the law called the follow on. And how does this concept works? This concept works as follows. If a side leads on the first innings in a 2 innings match, and I'll start with the example of if a match is 5 days or more, like our test match as an example. We get to later in the slide if you do have matches that's less than 4 days. But for now, let's start with an example of a test match that spans over 5 days. Yes, the law makes provision for test matches over matches of more than 5 days, but these days we don't have matches of more than 5 days. I know back in the 1910s, 20s, or 30s, they used to play more than 5 days, but these days test matches spans 5 days max. So in our test match that is over 5 days, the law tells us that if a side leads, a side that batted first, And after both sides has batted in their first innings, the side that batted first leads by at least 200 runs. The captain of that side has the option of asking the other side to follow on in the second innings, i.e., asking the other side to go bat again in the second innings. But that lead needs to be at least 200 runs, and also it's the prerogative of the field of the captain of the side that's leading by more than 200 runs to enforce the follow on or not. That captain does not have to enforce the follow on if they don't want to. They have the option of saying, yes, umpire, I want the other side to go follow on, or no, umpire, I want to go bat again in my second innings. So this is the theory. Let me give you a practical example of how the theory works. Let's use our South African Sri Lanka test match as an example. So Sri Lanka, and I'll use round numbers just for example purposes. So Sri Lanka batted first in our test match, and they scored 600. And let's say they were dismissed for 600. South Africa now goes to bat in their first innings, and Sri Lanka dismisses South Africa in their first innings for 395 runs. So what happens next? Because Sri Lanka leads by 205 runs, the option for the Sri Lankan captain is on the table to ask South Africa to go bat again in their second innings. They don't have to exercise the option to ask South Africa to follow on. If they want to go bat again in the second innings, it's that the captain's prerogative. But in my example, because the lead was more than 200 runs, was at least 200 runs, and in my example it was 205, the Sri Lankan captain has the option. If they exercise it, they can ask the captain South Africa to go bat again. If they don't want to, they can go bat again in the second innings. So not all more-day cricket or two innings matches spans over 5 days. Like in South Africa, our Division 1 and Division 2 provincial cricket spans over 4 days. We also have, we call it Colts cricket, which is basically under 23 sides. They play their cricket over 3 days. So now, if a match spans over 3 or 4 days, so when it comes to the minimum lead to enforce the follow-on, here it needs to be 150 runs. If it's a 2-day match of two, or where a side can bat 2 innings, the minimum lead to enforce the follow-on needs to be 100 runs. And lastly, if it's a 1-day game where sides can play 2 innings per in the match, there the minimum lead needs to be 75 runs. When it comes to notifying the opposing captain whether you're going to exercise the option to ask them to follow on or not, you need to make that decision immediately, whether you're going to bat or ask the other side to follow on. And once this decision has been made, whether yes, I want the other side to follow on, or no, I don't want them to follow on, I will go bat again in my second innings. Once that decision has been made and it's been relayed to the opposing captain and the umpires, that decision then cannot be changed. And lastly, under law 14, so what happens if the first day's play is lost? And here the emphasis is on it must be the first day of your match being lost. So if no play took place on the first day of your match, the law tells us now you need to look at how many days remains in your match, and depending on the amount of days that's remaining in your match, when it comes to what the minimum lead should be to enforce the follow on, You need to look at the remaining days left in your match and apply the number as per the laws. Okay, that's the theory. Let me give you one or two examples to explain to you how this theory works. Let's first start with a test match, South Africa, Sri Lanka. Day one, no play takes place. It rains the whole of day one. We get to the ground on day two, nice, bright, sunny day, and play can start on time, let's say at 10 o'clock. So remember, we lost it the whole of day one. So now, how many days left in our test match? We know test matches plan over 5 days, or most of them. So in our test match, 5-day test match, so we lost day one. So how many days remaining in our test match? 4 days remaining. So now the captain comes to you and asks you, umpire, in terms of follow on, how does it work now, seeing that we lost the whole first day? You will tell the captain, and I'll go back to the previous slide. The law tells us if your game is 4 days, what should the minimum lead be? 150 runs. And that is the message we will relay to the captain. Captain, 150 runs will be the minimum needs to be if you want to enforce the follow on. But again, importantly, it must be the first day's play that is lost. In an example where, let's say, this is now another example. Our test match, South Africa, Sri Lanka. Play on day one starts on time. We have the whole day's play on day one. We get to the ground the morning of day two, and it is bucketing outside. Not a single ball gets bowled on day two. We get to the ground on day three. Again, nice, bright and sunny, and play can start, let's say, at 10 o'clock. Now the captain comes to you and say, oh, Abdullah, in terms of the follow-on, how does it work now? Seeing that, yes, we started on time on day one, but we lost day two. And now we're starting again on day three. So technically we lost a day. So how does the follow-on now work? Your response to that, captain, will be, Cappy, it needs to be where we lose the first day's play for the minimum lead to change. So in this example, because play started on time on day one, we had a full day on day one. Yes, we lost day two, and we only started on day three. So yes, we lost a day. But when it comes to the minimum lead, it will stay 200 runs in this particular test match. So again, the point I want to make is it must be the first day's play that is lost for you to apply the number 150 if it's a 3 or 4 day game. Last law that I'm covering before handing over to Tom. So in the law, they allow for this concept of a side to declare their innings or a side to forfeit their innings. So let's start with a declaration. So the law allows for the captain of the batting side to declare his or her innings close at any time while the ball is dead during that innings. It is the prerogative of the batting captain. They have the power to declare the innings close as soon as the ball is dead at any time during that innings. This is an example. Let's say South Africa, Sri Lanka. South Africa batting first. South Africa is on the afternoon of day two on 700 for the loss of 3 wickets. Captain of South Africa feels that. Okay, I've batted long enough in my first innings, even though I'm only 3 down, but I think I've batted long enough. So the law allows for the captain of South Africa to inform his or her batters and the opposing captain and the umpires that umpire, captain and batters, I am declaring my innings closed. So South Africa will declare the first innings closed. Let's say it was 710 for the loss of 3 wickets. We've heard earlier that that will now be seen as a completed innings. The law also allows for a captain to forfeit an innings. This doesn't happen that often these days, but it is in the law, and a captain can forfeit an innings. So if a captain do decide to forfeit any of his side's innings, it needs to be made before the commencement of that particular innings, and the forfeited innings is seen in the law as a completed innings. And then lastly, as soon as the captain decides, yes, I'm going to declare, or yes, I'm going to forfeit my innings, as soon as that forfeiture or declaration happens, and as soon you need to notify the opposing captain, and once notified, that decision then cannot be changed afterwards. Tom, thank you so much. Just took a single. You can face the rest of the over. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you very much, Abdullah, and good day to all the candidates who have tuned in. I know you're all eagerly awaiting the arrival of Alauddin Palika, but bear with me for the next 45 or so minutes to take you through laws 16, 17, and 18, and then we will get into our question and answer session, which will include our beloved Palis. So law 16 is the result, and I'm going to take you briefly through the different types of results that we can get in a cricket match. We know that a match can be played as 2 innings per side or only 1 innings per side. So let's first look at a result and a win in a 2 innings per side match. Law tells us that the side which has scored a total of runs in excess of that scored in the 2 completed innings of the opposing side shall win the match. So tagging on to the example of South Africa versus Sri Lanka in a test match, I'll give you a simple example. South Africa in their first innings scored 400 runs all out. Sri Lanka in reply scored 300 runs in their first innings all out. South Africa in their second innings scored 200 runs all out. If you add up South Africa's 2 innings scores, they scored an aggregate of 600 runs, 400 plus 200. So in their second innings, Sri Lanka needed 300 runs to tie the match and 301 to win the match. So Sri Lanka were all out by 250 runs in the last innings of the match, which is a completed innings, as Abdullah mentioned. So South Africa would win that test match by 50 runs. That is how many runs in total Sri Lanka were short of South Africa's total. 600 minus 550. Let's look at a win in a 1 innings per side match. The side which has scored in its 1 innings a total of runs in excess of that scored by the opposing side in its 1 completed innings shall win the match. And we do have scores of Champions Trophy matches from last year that we will go through to illustrate a 1 innings per side match win. So what about a tie and a draw? What are the definitions of those results? We'll start with a tie. The result of a match shall be a tie when all innings have been completed and the scores are equal. So I'll go back to that test match between South Africa and Sri Lanka. South Africa scored 400 in their first innings. Sri Lanka scored 300 in their first innings. South Africa scored 200 in their second innings. and Sri Lanka needed 301 runs to win the match, but they were bowled out for 300 runs all out. That means that all innings were completed because Sri Lanka were bowled out in the last innings. And the scores are equal. South Africa 400 plus 200 equals 600 runs scored. Sri Lanka 300 plus 300 equals 600 runs scored. Equal scores and all innings were completed. That is the important part about a tie. All the innings have to have been completed. And of course, the scores must be equal. So what is a draw? Law simply says that the result of a match shall be a draw when it is not determined in any of the ways stated previously. So I'll give you an example of a draw. We'll go back to the same test match. South Africa scores 400 runs in their first innings. Sri Lanka scores 300 runs in their first innings. South Africa scores 200 runs in their second innings. So Sri Lanka need 301 runs to win the match. At the end of play on day 5, Sri Lanka are 280 runs for 9 wickets. When the end of the required amount of overs in the last hour have been bowled and we have reached the cessation time. Is that a win for South Africa? No, it is not. Why? Because Sri Lanka's fourth innings, or the fourth innings of the match, which is Sri Lanka's second innings, was not complete. They were 280 for 9 wickets down, and there was still a number 11 batter waiting to come in. Sorry, number 10 and number 11 were batting, so they were not dismissed. So because the fourth innings of that match was not completed, it means that that result is a draw. There is another way that a match can result in a win for a team. It is if umpires award a match to a specific side. Law tells us that a match shall be lost by a side which either concedes defeat or, in the opinion of the umpires, refuses to play. And we need to be very careful when dealing with teams that refuse to play. We need to find out the reason for them not wanting to play, and we need to convince them as far as possible to rather play under dispute than to refuse to play. And cricket hopefully should be the winner at the end of every match. And if there are issues that need to be addressed that occurred during a match, then that team that feels hard done by can take those issues up after having completed the match. But if a side, after negotiating or engaging with the umpires, still refuses to play, we unfortunately would have to award the match to the non-defaulting side. In our last lecture of level 2, we will be covering Law 42, player conduct, and it talks about a player getting suspended, having to leave the field, and if that player refuses to leave the field, we as umpires need to tell the captain to instruct that player to leave the field, and if that player doesn't want to leave the field, then we will inform the captain that they will be regarded as refusing to play the match. And we would go to the extent of awarding the match to the non-defaulting side. Now let's watch a video of the only match in Test match history that was awarded. I will talk through this particular match and perhaps how it could have been dealt with after the video.
Over the last 140 years, more than 2,300 test matches have been played. Over 1,500 of these have ended in a result. Over 700 have been drawn, 2 have been tied, and only 1 has ended in a forfeit.
The thing I remember about the forfeit test is none of us had a clue what was going on, really.
According to law 1632, a match shall be lost by a side which, in the opinion of the umpires, refuses to play. On August 20, 2006, this rule was invoked for the first time on an afternoon that swung wildly between high drama and farce. An hour before tea on the 4th day, at the end of the 56th over of England's second innings, umpires Darrell Hare and Billy Doctrove asked for a change of ball.
One of the reserve umpires came out with a new box of balls. It's clear they were changing the ball. No big deal there. But instead of asking the bowling side to choose the new one, he asked the batting side. And you think, oh, hello, interesting.
The umpires then awarded England 5 penalty runs, confirming that they had pulled Pakistan up for tampering with the ball. The trouble was there was no evidence. No jelly, no dirt, no sandpaper.
A lot of people have looked at that ball have different opinions. Some feel it was clearly tampered with, and some think it was more than just playable. It was a good-looking ball. Others think you can see some evidence of scratching, but none that suggests it's been done on purpose and by hand, or even by a foreign object. So very mixed views.
It was after the tea break, taken more than 15 overs after the 5-run penalty, that things really escalated. The umpires walked out, the English batsmen walked out, the Pakistanis didn't.
They felt hugely wronged. They weren't sure that whether they wanted to come out.
After waiting for 20 minutes, the umpires walked to the Pakistan dressing room, came back a few minutes later and took the bails off.
The match is aborted or abandoned or cancelled or no, wrong, none of that. We hear the match has been awarded to England. Wow.
That wasn't the end of it either. After a protest lasting almost an hour, and following discussions with match referee Mike Proctor, Inzamam al-Haq finally leads the Pakistan team out again. This time, though, the umpires stay put. They've made their decision, and they're sticking by it.
My view of that was that it was very inflexible. Mike Proctor was the match referee in a very difficult position. I think there should have been an instruction from on high, from the chief executive or chairman of ICC, that this is a unique situation because of the unproven circumstances. In a proven circumstance of a tampered ball and the side refusing to come out, fair enough. But this was unproven.
Several hours after the bails were taken off, the ICC and the English and Pakistan cricket boards confirm in a joint statement that the match had indeed been forfeited. The hints kept on coming. With no evidence to back up the accusation, the ICC dropped the ball tampering charges. But Inzamam was banned for 4 one-dayers for refusing to lead his team out. They also removed Hare from international duty, who in turn threatened to sue the ICC and the PCB for racial discrimination. 2 years later, the ICC overturned the result from a Pakistan loss to a draw. But the MCC refused to recognize this.
It was all incredibly nasty. and another stain on the game. There's never been any concrete proof that Pakistan were in the wrong anyway.
To date, this remains the only scorecard in history to state England awarded the match, opposition refused to play. In the end, though, there was only one real loser: cricket itself.
So I think the lessons learned from that incident for all of us is that, firstly, as umpires, yes, we need to uphold the laws of the game. And if we do sense or suspect that there might be mismanagement of the ball, commonly referred to as ball tampering, we need to follow our due processes, and we will go through that in Law 41. But for us to actually punish a side for ball tampering, we need to have concrete evidence. We cannot go on hearsay or speculation. We need to have seen tampering of the ball for us to take action. And then secondly, I think it's very important to speak to both captains, especially the one that is refusing to play, and try to encourage them to rather play under dispute than to not continue to play the game. And cricket has a beautiful way of sorting itself out, and maybe the result would have ended up with Pakistan winning, and then there wouldn't have been such big controversy around this particular game. So as umpires, we have a duty to instill the laws of cricket, but also to maximize play. And if it means we need to encourage a side not to withdraw or refuse to play, then let us take on that duty as well. So let's look at the statement of results. How are they documented? If the side batting last wins the match without losing all of its wickets, the result shall be stated as a win by the number of wickets still then to fall. We know that for a side to be all out, 10 wickets need to fall. So let's have a look at the first result that is on screen. It is a ICC Champions Trophy match from Rawalpindi last year, Bangladesh versus New Zealand. Bangladesh batted first. They scored 236 for the loss of 9 wickets in their allocated 50 overs. New Zealand batted second. They chased down the total and got to 240 runs for the loss of 5 wickets after 46.1 out of their allocated 50 overs. So New Zealand had 5 wickets fall. They still had 5 wickets in hand. That is why the statement of the result is New Zealand won by 5 wickets. And in brackets, you can also mention in a limited overs match how many balls were remaining or still available to the side batting second when they reached the target. In this case, 23 balls were remaining. If the side fielding last wins the match, the result shall be stated as a win by runs. So the next match that is documented, South Africa batted first and they scored 315 runs for the loss of 6 wickets in their allocated 50 overs. Afghanistan batting second only managed a total of 208 runs all out in 43.3 overs. So South Africa won by 315 minus 208, which is 107 runs. And that, of course, is a 1 innings per side match. Both of these matches were one-day international matches, 50 overs per side. If the match is decided by one side conceding defeat or refusing to play, the result shall be stated as match conceded or match awarded, whichever the case might be. That's law 16 done. Moving on to law 17, the over. Number of legal deliveries that constitute an over. We all know that the ball shall be bowled from each end alternately in overs of 6 legal deliveries. When does an over start? Law tells us that an over has started when the bowler starts his or her run-up for the first ball of an over. If the bowler does not have a run-up, then the over starts when he or she starts his or her bowling action for the first delivery of that over. What is the start of the bowling action? It is when the back foot of the bowler lands in the delivery stride. That's only if they do not have a run-up. I've never seen a bowler who doesn't have a run-up. Even the late great Shane Warne, who used to walk up to the crease before entering his bowling action or his delivery stride, that walk up to the crease is considered his run-up. When shall deliveries not count as a legal delivery in the over? A ball shall not count as a legal delivery unless it is delivered. You often find if a bowler loses his or her run-up, they might still go through with their bowling action but not release the ball. Obviously, it will not count as a legal delivery in the over. Sometimes a ball is delivered but will still not count as a legal ball in the over. What are those examples? If the ball is called dead or is to be considered dead before the striker has had an opportunity to play it. For example, if a batter was not ready for the delivery, the ball was delivered, but the batter moved away and did not attempt to play at the ball, then the ball will be called and signaled dead ball and shall not count as a legal delivery in that over. It needs to be rebowled. Also, if the striker is distracted while receiving a delivery, that ball can be called dead. If it is called and signaled as a dead ball by either umpire, then that ball will not count as a legal delivery in the over. It needs to be rebowled. Of course, we know if a ball is a no ball or a wide, it also needs to be rebowled and does not count as a legal delivery in the over. If a player returns without permission and comes into contact with the ball shall immediately become dead. Good umpiring practice would be to call and signal dead ball because most players don't know this law. 5 penalty runs will be awarded to the batting side, as well as any runs completed and the run in progress if they've crossed at the instant of the fielder coming into contact with the ball. that ball, even though it was delivered, even though it was played, it will not count as a legal delivery in the over and needs to be rebowled. Similarly, if there's an instant of illegal fielding, that ball, even though it has been delivered and it was played as well, call and signal dead ball, 5 penalty runs awarded to the batting side, it will not count as a legal delivery, needs to be rebowled. In Law 41, we'll come across deliberate attempt to distract the striker, deliberate distraction, deception, or obstruction of a batter. When either of those offenses occur, even though the ball has been delivered, it will not count as a legal delivery in the over and needs to be rebowled. Let's talk about miscounting. How do we handle that as umpires? If the umpire miscounts the number of valid deliveries, the over as counted by the umpire shall stand. So if for whatever reason after 5 balls, an umpire, bowlers and umpire calls over, that is the end of the over. If, for example, if for whatever reason we miscount and a 7th delivery is bowled, that 7th delivery will count. If there was a wicket that fell in that delivery, it will stand. If there were runs scored in that 7th delivery, they will count. Umpire calls over after that 7th delivery, that 7th delivery will count. If having miscounted, the umpire allows an over to continue after 6 valid balls have been bowled, he or she may subsequently call over as the ball becomes dead after any delivery, even if that delivery is not a valid ball. So let me give you an example to illustrate what the law is telling us here. So we've bowled 6 legal deliveries, but for whatever reason, we've miscounted, and now we allow a 7th delivery to be bowled. That 7th delivery happens to be a no ball, and after that no ball call, then we get a shout from the scorers saying that we had already bowled 6 legal deliveries. That no ball was a 7th delivery in the over. Law tells us here, normally we are supposed to re-bowl a no ball, but law tells us in this example, because we've already bowled 6 legal deliveries, even though it's a no ball, the 7th delivery, we call over immediately because we have now realized that we have gone past 6 legal deliveries. There will be no free hit. There will be no 8th delivery bowled. The first ball of the next over will also not be a free hit. However, that no ball 1 run penalty will stand. If any runs were scored off that no ball, they will also stand. If a wicket fell off that no ball, that wicket will remain. So please, ladies and gents, make sure that as a team of umpires on the field, you always keep good count of every over. We normally miscount because there are events in the over that might confuse us. For example, was there a dead ball that shouldn't have counted as a legal delivery in the over? You need to know these laws. Was there a dead ball that did count as a legal delivery in the over? You need to know this. Also, what we do is after every no ball, after every wide, after every dead ball, after a fall of a wicket or any stoppage for injury, we confirm the number of balls remaining in that over. because it's due to those stoppages or repeat deliveries where we can easily lose count. So that is our way of making sure that we do not lose count, is by confirming with our partner after every wide, after every no ball, after every dead ball, after the fall of a wicket, and any stoppage for any reason. Actually, it doesn't just have to be an injury. We confirm the number of balls remaining in the over. Can a bowler change ends? Yes. Law tells us that a bowler shall be allowed to change ends as often as desired, provided that he or she does not bowl 2 overs consecutively, nor bowl any parts of 2 consecutive overs in the same innings. So apart from the 100, which has a few weird playing conditions, every tournament, every format of cricket that I know of, opening bowler bowls from one end, the next opening bowler bowls from the other end, and so we have alternating overs, and no bowler can bowl any part of 2 consecutive overs in the same innings. Let us think of a scenario where South Africa versus Sri Lanka in a test match. South Africa scores 600 runs in their first innings. Sri Lanka scores 300 runs all out in their first innings. Kagiso Rabada takes the last wicket of Sri Lanka's first innings. Because the lead is 300 runs, South Africa do have the option to enforce the follow-on. Captain of South Africa, Themba Bavuma, decides to enforce the follow-on. So now Sri Lanka is batting again. Straight after their first innings, they've been asked by South Africa to bat for a second time immediately after the change of innings. Question is, can Kagiso Rabada start the next innings? And can he bowl from the same end that he bowled from the last over of the first innings of Sri Lanka's batting? Yes, he can. It is not the same innings, so he can bowl 2 consecutive overs in a match because they are not in consecutive overs in the same innings. Other than at the end of an innings, a bowler shall finish an over in progress unless he or she is incapacitated or suspended by any of the laws of cricket. If for any reason, other than at the end of an innings, an over is left uncompleted at the start of an interval or interruption, it shall be completed on resumption of play. Abdullah mentioned a wicket falling at 11:58 on the first ball of what was supposed to be the last over before lunch. We take lunch immediately because it's less than 3 minutes to the lunch interval. So that over will be completed after the lunch interval when we resume at 12:38, 40 minutes later. Last law that I'm covering before we get into our question and answer sessions. Law 18, scoring runs. And we are only going to be looking at one concept divided into 2. We're going to be looking at short runs. We're going to be looking at unintentional short runs, how to deal with them. And then we're going to look at deliberate short runs, how to recognize them and how to deal with them. Let's start with unintentional short runs. If either batter runs a short run, the umpire concerned shall call and signal short run when the ball becomes dead, and that run shall not be scored. What is a short run? It is when turning for a subsequent run, one or both of the batters do not ground their bat or person over the popping crease at the end where they are turning. If after either or both batters run short, a boundary is scored, the umpire concerned shall disregard the short running and shall not call or signal short run unless the boundary is the result of an overthrow or willful act. Of course, a boundary 4 will override however many runs have been attempted by the batters. Unless, of course, they ran more than 4, which then would be the greater of the boundary allowance or the number of runs completed and crossed before the ball went over the boundary. If both batters run short in one and the same run, this shall be regarded as only one short run. So if the batters attempt 2 runs and at turning at the end of the first run, they both run short and they complete the second run, it won't be 2 short runs. It will be 1 short run. So 2 minus 1 run will be scored. If more than 1 run is short, all runs called as short shall not be scored. So if they've attempted 3 runs and 2 of them were short, then only 1 run would be scored. Very tricky to try and communicate that to the scorers because there is no special signal. We at provincial level, we have got radios where we can communicate with the third umpire, and the third umpire will communicate with the scorers as to how many runs were correctly completed when a short run signal is shown and there was more than 1 short run. Then the third umpire will need to notify the scorers accordingly. Let's watch a video to take us through the difference between unintentional short runs and deliberate short runs.
Hello guys, welcome to my channel. This video is a new addition to the analysis series. Let's get started. On 15th of November 2018, second day of second test match between Sri Lanka and England, a strange incident happened. Let's watch the footage. Looks like a normal short run case, isn't it? Well, that's not the case. Let's see what umpire's decision was. You did not understand what he signaled. He initially disallowed all the runs scored by the batsman on that delivery. Further, he informed the batsman about deliberate short running and awarded 5 penalty runs to the fielding side. Now, let's see what the cricket law has to say about running short. There are 2 categories in this, unintentional and deliberate. Let's take a look at unintentional short running first. If a batsman runs short, then the umpire shall call and signal short run as soon as the ball becomes dead, and that run shall not be scored. For example, if they run 2 and if they run 1 short, then only 1 run will be scored. Now, let's take a look at deliberate short run. Cricket law states that if either umpire considers that one or both the batsmen deliberately ran short, then wait for the ball to become dead and further disallow all the runs scored on that delivery, return the batsmen to their original end, and award 5 penalty runs to the fielding side. Now, let's see why the umpire considered this incident as deliberate short running. As you can see, both the batsmen start running and then striker Roshan Silva feels that the ball will reach the boundary. But upon seeing Moeen Ali has stopped the ball, he runs back to the striker's end. But in between, the striker Roshan Silva did not ground the bat at all, which made the umpire to consider this as deliberate short run. If he had at least tried to ground the bat, then most likely that the umpire would not have considered this as a deliberate short run. 5-run penalty for this feels a bit harsh, isn't it? Now let's see why exactly this law exists. In an IPL match between Mumbai Indians and Kings 11, while chasing 231, Mumbai Indians needed 16 runs of the last over. Kieron Pollard, who faces the first ball of the over, strikes the ball and sets off for the run, thinking that he can come back for 2. But upon realizing that he cannot make it, he runs back to the striker's end without completing the first run. And it can be seen that he did that deliberately as he wanted to get back the strike. It is clearly unfair as he got 1 run and also he came back to the strike. To prevent the players from doing such things, this law exists. But in Roshan Silva's case, he was not trying to gain any unfair advantage. But since he did not make any effort to complete the first run, it was ruled deliberate short run. Still have any doubts with this? Do let me know in the comment section. If you like the video, then hit the like button and share with all your friends. If you have not subscribed yet, then don't forget to subscribe for more such contents.
So let's look at how we deal with deliberate short runs. If either umpire considers that one or both batters deliberately ran short, the umpire concerned shall, when the ball is dead, call and signal short run and inform the other umpire of what has occurred. And then the bowler's end umpire shall disallow all runs to the batting side. So Murray's signal of dead ball was disallowing all the runs to the batting side. We need to return any not out batters to their original ends. If there was a no ball or a wide, we need to signal that accordingly. And of course, we award 5 penalty runs to the fielding side for the offense by the batters. We need to inform everybody and we need to report the matter to the governing body of the match because it is a serious offense. Interestingly enough, in the 2026 law changes, which are applicable from the 1st of October 2026, the fielding captain will also, if there is an instant of deliberate short runs, be able to choose which batter faces the next delivery. So that is an extra bit of punishment against the batting side to nail them for this illegal practice. Remember that for purposes of this course, we are still going through the 2022 edition of the Laws of Cricket. So that is why it is that added punishment is not included in this presentation. And our exam is still based on the 2022 Code of Laws of Cricket. So now we're going to go into the chat box to see which questions have been posed while we were presenting. The first question is from Ishanullah Danish from Afghanistan. Abdullah, our tea is scheduled for 1440 and at 1400 it started to rain. And the rain continues until 1410, which is 30 minutes before the scheduled tea break. Can we take tea at 1410, or do we go back onto the field of play at 1410 and then take tea at 1414?
So Tom, we've only covered a few of the time-saving mechanism or flexibility that the lawmakers brought into when it comes to our tea interval. But another one of those is this exact example where if we get to half an hour to tea and we off for rain, we can bring tea 30 minutes forward. So yes, Isanula, we will take tea at 14:10 for 20 minutes until 14:30. And if conditions permit, we will first ball to be bowled at 14:30. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Dula. Zemi asks, how do we signal last hour? I think Abdullah showed it, but maybe this question was asked before the signal was shown. Zemi, you simply point to the wrist and in the direction of the scorers, so they see you pointing at your wrist. That is the signal for last hour. Abue Chupuka. At the fall of a wicket or the retirement of a batter, further balls remain to be bowled, but no further batter is available to come in. What if the team wants to substitute the injured batter? Abdullah, you made an example of the opening bat retired hurt. Now the team is 9 wickets down. The opening bat has broken his or her hand, cannot hold the bat, cannot come back in to resume his or her innings. Can we get a replacement to bat in place of that injured batter? And I think we did cover some replacement scenarios yesterday, but we can go through this question today as well. You're still on mute, Abdullah.
Sorry, Tom, rookie error. Yes, we've covered this yesterday. And yes, as long as the injured player is replaced, and that replacement needs to be done with the consent of the opposing captain. So the opposing captain agreed that the opening batter can be replaced, and UC gave their consent. This replacement player, who has now full powers in this game, i.e. can bat, can bowl, can keep, can do anything in this game, this replacement player can then come into bat. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Dula. Zini is still stuck on the last hour. He wants to know, do we signal last hour in each and every match or only in test matches and other multiple day matches? Dula, do we signal the last hour in a 50 over per side match, a T20 match?
So no, Tom. The last hour you'll only find in more day matches where there are 2 innings or more, like in our test match, like in 4-day provincial cricket here in South Africa, 3-day more day matches. So you will not find the last hour in a T20 or a 50 over game. So Zimi, no, it's not only in test match. In more day games, like, yes, let me start with the test match. The last hour you'll find on day number 5 in our test match. Let's say the close of play is 5 o'clock. So when we reach 1600 hours, it will be then the start of the last hour, and the umpire will signal by pointing to his or her wrist to indicate to everyone, scorers and everyone, that the last hour has now started. Same principle will apply in if it's a 4-day game or even a 3-day game. So if it's the 4-day game, on day number 4, when we get to our last hour, let's say in a 4-day game, close of play is 6 o'clock. So when we reach 5 o'clock, the umpire will indicate the start of the last hour. If it's a 3-day game, on day number 3, when we get to, and let's say the close of play is 6 o'clock, when we get to 5 o'clock, umpire will indicate by pointing to his or her wrist that the last hour has now started. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Dula. Kalim Rademeyer asks if we can explain law 12.6, which is the last hour, using a practical example. So maybe if you can use a 5-day test match, we know the last minimum overs required in a test match in the last hour is 15 overs, whereas law specifies 20 overs. So let's go with a test match last hour example, please, Dula. When does that last hour start?
Yeah, so Tom, I'm going to apply, even though I'm going to use a test match, I'm going to apply what the laws of cricket say, because this exam is based on the laws of cricket. And in level 2, we won't go into much detail when it comes to the last hour. Those of you that's going to join us for level 3, that's where we'll go into lots of details, and it's definitely an exam question on the last hour. But for Caleb, just to explain this concept of how the last hour works. So if I can just take you back in time, before this law was actually tweaked a bit. So many years ago, teams that used to abuse this. So what would happen was, we get to let's say day 5 of our test match. We know close of play is let's say close of play is 5 o'clock. So we'll get to, let's say, 4 o'clock, and the batting side needs, let's say, 60 runs to win. So what the fielding side would do is, the fielding side would deliberately start slowing the game down, start wasting time. They know the batting side needs 60 to win. They trying to bowl as little overs up until 5 o'clock as possible, to try to let the batting team not get the runs. So this was happened too often. The lawmakers then tweaked this law, and they sat and they decided, let's be fair to both sides. And the decision that the lawmakers came up with is that, to be fair to both sides, we want the fielding side to bowl a minimum of 20 overs in the last hour. Emphasis on minimum of 20 overs to be bowled in the last hour. So practically how this works is, so in our test match, close of play is at 5 o'clock. When we get to 4 o'clock, that's when our last hour will start in our test match. We will then indicate to everyone, the scorers, we will point to our raise wrist. Everyone will now know we've started the last hour, and now according to the laws wants a minimum of 20 to be bowled in that last hour. So the fielding side have to bowl 20. So when we get to 5, let's say example 1, we started at 4 o'clock, we get to 5 o'clock, and the fielding sides only bowled 15 overs. What happens next? Do we stop, seeing that we've reached the cutoff time? No, the law tells us we will now not stop. Why? Because the law wants a minimum of 20 to be bowled in the last hour. If the fielding side is slow, we will force them, they must bowl minimum of 20. So when we get to 5 o'clock and the fielding sides only bowl 20, play will continue until they bowl a minimum of 20. So even if it takes them a further half an hour, a further 40 minutes, we will bowl 20 until play, the game will be then concluded. So minimum of 20 to be bowled in the last hour. So if they slow, we will continue until they bowl this 20. Example 2, you sometimes find spinners bowling. The over rate could then be quick. They'll get through their overs quickly. So in an example where 5 o'clock is our cutoff time, and last hour started. Can you please mute your microphone? I'm hearing background noise. Tom, can you just mute everyone, and then I'll unmute myself, please?
I've done so up to now. You can unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. So example 2, last hour starts at 4 o'clock. We need to play till 5 o'clock, but the fielding side had 2 spinners bowling in tandem, and they go quickly through their overs. So now we get to 16:50, and we've bowled 20 overs. So now what happens? Do we stop? What happens? We will continue playing, because the law tells us a minimum of 20 needs to be bowled. So yes, they've got to 1650 and they've bowled it 20, but the cutoff time is only 1700 hours. So we will play for a further 10 minutes up until 5 o'clock, and then the game is concluded if they haven't scored the winning runs. So a minimum of 20 to be bowled. If spinners are quick and they can bowl 40 in that last hour. I mean, I know I'm being ridiculous, but I'm just trying to make a point. If they can bowl 40 in that last hour, no issue. They can bowl 40, but because a minimum of 20 needs to be bowled. Over, Tom. Okay, Tom, you on mute now. Tom, you're still on mute. Okay, now you're off mute.
Thanks. I'm having some glitches here. Here we go. Okay, so the next question is about a draw. Let me just go back to it. I was busy trying to find a video that will help explain. Ubue Chukuka, please explain a drawn match again. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you a match between England and Zimbabwe many years ago. You can see from the visuals that this was in the early 2000s, before the days of high definition TV. So this is a 5-day test match that ended up in a draw. Although the scores were level. Let's just add up the different scores of the two teams. So Zimbabwe batted first. They scored 376 in their first innings, and they scored 234 in their second innings. 610 runs in total. So England scored 406 in their first innings, and to win the match, they needed to score 205 runs. That would have given them a total of 611 runs, which would have been one more than what Zimbabwe scored. At the end of day 5, at the end of the last hour, there were no more overs left in the day's play. There was no more time available in the match. England were 204 for the loss of 6 wickets. 406 in their first innings plus 204 in their second innings gave England a total also of 610 runs. So Zimbabwe and England scored exactly the same number of runs if you add up their runs from the first innings and the second innings. So why is this result not a tie? Why is it a draw? The reason it is not a tie is because England's second innings, 204 for 6, was not completed. Remember, for completed innings, the team must be all out. Was England all out? No, they were not. They were only 6 wickets down. So that means that the fourth innings of the match was not completed. A match can only be a tie if all 4 innings of the match are completed. Because the fourth innings of this match was not completed, the result of this match is a draw and not a tie. I hope that answers your question and clarifies the difference between a tie and a draw. Next question in the chat box is from Pemelo Tota. An interruption is an unscheduled break in play. It could be caused by umpires having to investigate a delay in the appearance of a new batter after the fall of a wicket. So that time, the minutes lost, will be calculated. Should the umpires start calculating time lost when there is a delay on the field of play? Abdullah, do we start losing time and do we have to reduce overs if there is time lost while the players are still on the field of play?
So no, Tom, no time lost. So, and I also think if I listen to Pamelo's question that you've just read, so I think the question is, if you need to investigate why a batter is not coming in,
Okay.
and that time is, and you're obviously going to lose, let's say 5-6 minutes. What happens to that 5-6 minutes? It's not raining, it's not bad weather, but you lost now 6 minutes to the game having to investigate. I think that's my interpretation of the question. And in that instance, Pomelo, so here the law allows you, you're now going to investigate why this batter is not coming out to bat. So it could be there's a refusal to play by the one side. That's why they're not sending out the batter. It could not be. You don't know, hence you're going to investigate. And because of this investigation, why the new batter's not coming out, no, you will not be losing any time. Yes, it might take a few minutes. You will not be losing any time. The law allows us to, because you investigated why they're not coming out, you can actually extend play for those few minutes as to not lose any time. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Tula. Scrolling through the chat box, I see Rifat and Lechasa wanted to ask Ali's questions, and I gather that he did answer them in directly or a roundabout way. Chad has given us an app to stream the PSL on, so we shall use that. Thank you very much, Chad. Question from Ria Ziga. How can a young umpire learn game management? Is there any guidance you can offer to them asking for young umpires? So, Ria Ziga, there is no substitute for experience as an umpire. Every game is different, and every match that you officiate in, you would, should, and probably could learn something from what you see and what you experience. So game management you will develop as you stand more often, and what makes things easier as you are more experienced is you won't panic if you see something that you have dealt with before. If you see something strange happening for the first time, for example, if the ball goes through the wicketkeeper's legs and hits the helmet behind that is put on the floor, you know, as according to law, you need to call and signal 5 penalty runs to the fielding side. To the batting side. You need to award 5 penalty runs to the batting side. But when it happens, you will get shocked. You will freeze. For the first time, you might forget that you have to signal 5 penalty runs. The ball automatically becomes dead, but it's good umpiring practice for you to call and signal dead ball because not everybody will have seen the ball hitting the helmet placed behind the wicket keeper. So that is just one example of how you will get better at game management by simply umpiring more. You will see new and different scenarios that you will have to apply the law to, and there is no substitute for experience. The more you umpire, the better you will become at game management. That is why you see the best umpires in the world. They are not 25 years old. I started umpiring at 27 years old, which was at the time considered relatively young. I'm now 45 years old. I have gained a lot of experience and I deal with certain issues now on the field that I wouldn't have known how to deal with back in 2007 when I first started umpiring. So my advice to all the young umpires out there is umpire as much cricket as you can, because your management of matches will improve with your experience. I'm afraid there is no substitute for experience, Riaziga. You just need to get on the park and you will learn every day from your experiences. Dieter Daniels asks, for the replacement for an injured batter after the consent of the opposing captain, would the replacement continue where the injured batter left his or her innings? So, example, Dula, if Steve Smith is hit on the head and he is replaced by Manas Labuschagne as a concussion replacement, does Manas Labuschagne have to bat the same position as Steve Smith? And does he continue from, if Steve Smith was 30 not out, does Labuschagne's score start from 30 as he comes in for Steve Smith?
So no, Tom, to answer the first part of your question, Marnus does not have to bat exactly the same place. Marnus can bat anywhere in the order as the captain sees fit. Second part of your question, no, Marnus does not continue where Steve left off. Those 30 runs will be allocated to Steve and will be part of Steve's statistics. Marnus will then start afresh, and whatever runs Marnus scored will be part of his statistics. So if Marnus scores 70, it will be 70 towards Marnus stats, and 30 will go towards Steve's stats. It will not be 100 to Steve. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Dula. I see Dieter Daniels has just put his hand up. Dieter, do you want to add to your question or ask a question based on Abdullah's answer? If so, please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours. Looks like Dieter can't unmute his microphone. No problem. We'll move on in the chat box. Sirala asks, what are the appeals referred to the TV umpire? What are the appeals that the TV umpire can review? I think that's one question. And then if there is a review for LBW, but it turns out that there was an inside edge, can the TV umpire give the striker out caught? Abdullah, if of course the ball went on to be taken as a fair catch.
Yeah. So, Sirala, when it comes to international cricket, where the decision review system, DRS system, is in place, so you will find there will be player reviews, and then there will be umpire reviews. Umpire reviews are like run-out, stumpings, hit wicket, to check bowl. Those are just a few examples of umpire reviews. And if the umpire wants the TV umpire to have on-field umpire wants the TV umpire to have a second look for whether it's a stumping or a run-out or fair catch, they can then send it up and ask the TV to have a second look. Those are umpire reviews. When it comes to player reviews, and 99% of the player reviews are either LBW or caught behind reviews. So the usual process is there will be an appeal. on-field umpire will make a decision. Either the batter or the fielding captain will challenge the decision that the umpire made. So let's use an LBW decision as an example, because I see that's your second part of your question. So if the appeal umpire turned down the LBW appeal, fielding captain wants to challenge the not out LBW decision that the umpire make. The on-field, the fielding captain will then make the T sign. Umpire will then send it up to the TV umpire, informing him or her that there is a play review for LBW, and also then confirm the decision that the on-field umpire made, which is not out in my example. So now the TV umpire will then review the LBW review. If auto no ball is in place, and let's assume it's a fair delivery, on-field umpire will then go through the process of first checking if there's any contact with the bat, and then if not, we'll then go to ball tracking. But now looking at your example, so yes, an LBW review was sent up. So initially, TV umpire looked at the LBW review, but then while checking ultra edge, TV umpire then saw there's an inside edge, and that inside edge then went from the bat, let's say onto the top of the pad, and then looped to, let's say, the slip fielder who caught it before before touching the ground. So now the initial appeal was for LB, or the review that was sent up was for LB. But according to law, an appeal covers all modes of dismissals. So if you appeal, it doesn't have to be, when you appeal, you don't say, umpire, I'm appealing for LB, or umpire, I'm appealing for court. If you appeal, how's that? It covers all modes of dismissals. The TV umpire, then if there are conclusive evidence, like in my example, that is conclusive evidence via ultra edge that there's been an inside edge and it went onto the pad and then looped to whether the keeper or the slip who took the ball cleanly. So in this instance, the TV umpire will inform the on-field umpire to give the batter out court. Over, Tom. I hope I answered the question.
100%, Dula. Thank you. Sandeep asks, if a bowler starts his run-up, before entering his delivery stride, his muscle pulls and he cannot walk any longer. He leaves the field for recovery. This was supposed to be the first ball of the over. Is this over considered to have started, and will it count for the injured bowler as an over bowled? And will it also count for the bowler who completes the over as a full over bowled, in terms of, in limited overs matches, the quota that a bowler is allowed to bowl? Abdullah?
So Sandeep, I'm going to cover both scenarios that Tom asked in his question. The first one is, so yes, as you alluded to, as soon as the bowler starts his run-up, i.e. the moment the bowler gives that first step, according to the law, the over has technically started. Not have to bowl a ball. Lots of us, including me in my playing days, we all thought the bowler must deliver a ball, and now the over starts. So no, the law tells us as soon as the bowler gives his or her first step, that is technically when the over starts. So in your example, the bowler took a few steps, so yes, the over started, and then the bowler pulled up injured, and then left the field to get treatment to the injury, and then someone else came to complete the over. So now let's say this is a 50 over game, and maximum overs that a bowler is allowed in a 50 over limited over game is 10 overs. So how does the law see this? So let's say bowler A because he started his over, even though a ball wasn't bowled, but he took a few steps, over technically started. So the law sees that as, even though not a single ball was bowled, but the law sees it as bowler A that bowled an over. And now bowler B that replaced bowler A, that technically completed the over. So that would also go against bowler B's allocation of an over bowled. So now bowler A is technically bowled and over. So when bowler A comes back later on, got treatment, let's say to the hammy, and came back later and now wants to continue bowling, and the captain comes to you and say, umpire, how many overs can bowler A bowl? Can he still bowl his 10 overs, seeing that he didn't bowl a ball? Your answer to the captain will be, no, unfortunately not, captain, because he started his over, even though a ball wasn't bowled. He's technically started his over by giving a few steps, so that is seen in the law as that bowler technically bowling an over. So your bowler A is now only allowed to bowl 9 overs. And bowler B that completed that over, also seen as an over bowled by bowler B. So at the end of that over, bowler B is only allowed to bowl 9 further overs to complete his allotted maximum of 10. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Jula. Next question in the chat box is from Ritwik, and it is a wide scenario. Ritwik, we will be covering Law 22, which is wides, on Wednesday next week. So we'll address that question accordingly after presenting the wide law along with 19 to 25. Abi asks, how many hours of on-field umpiring per year is ideal as per your experience? Abi, so as I said, the more you umpire, the better you get at game management and also at decision making. Western Province Cricket Association club cricket season runs from beginning of October until the end of March, 6 months, with a 3-week window period for Christmas and New Year's where there is no cricket. So there are 23 Saturdays in our club cricket season. I recommend to all up-and-coming umpires to umpire every available Saturday, 23 Saturdays in a year, for them to get adequate experience. And if they are available, they should also try and umpire as many Sundays as they can. So let's say you umpire half of the Sundays available in the season. That is 23 divided by 2. Let's call it 12 Sundays, 23 Saturdays. That is 35 match days in a year. I think that is a good amount of cricket as an up-and-coming club umpire for you to gain experience. You can equate that to hours by multiplying by 3.5 hours for a T20 match and 7.5 hours for a 50-over match. Peter, please, can everybody stay on mute? We will give a chance for the hands up in the meeting room to ask questions after we've dealt with the questions in the chat box. Thank you. So now I'm going back to the chat box and I need to find where we were. We were at Dieter Daniels. Would Australia have 12 batters on their score sheet, Abdullah, if there was a concussion replacement? Marnus Labuschagne replacing Steven Smith.
So Tom, I'm not sure how the scorers handle if there is whether it's a replacement replacement player or a concussion replacement. So I'm not sure how they record these this on the score sheets. I'm not sure if there is a scorer in the audience. I don't have an answer. I think they would then. I can tell you what I think. Yeah, they're adding Steve Marnus, so there's technically going to be 12 batters on the score sheet. That's what I think. But a scorer can rectify me. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Tula. We can get confirmation from a Western Province official cricket scorer, and we'll get back to detail with the official answer next week, Wednesday. Thanks, Tula. There are no more questions in the chat box. I'm now going to the meeting room. 3 hands are up. Piyush, first one up. Please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours. I know some of you were waiting to ask questions to Alauddin Palika. Unfortunately, you weren't able to get in, but we will have him again sometime in the near future. Piyush doesn't seem to be able to unmute his microphone, so we're going to move on to Neville Kunjravia. Neville, please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Hello, Tom. Hello, Abdullah. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, Tom, my question is in regards to when we start the game and the baller, the opening baller of a team says, we are starting at your end. And you inform the batters. And then the captain comes and says, we are starting on the other end. So in that particular instance, we take the word of the captain, or are we allowed to change? And also in regards to that, if the batsman also, tries to change based on, okay, now we are changing the ends. So we'll swap and I'll be batting, for example, they also change their, who will be taking the strike. How do we deal with those situations? Like, what do we take into account and what comes first? As far as my knowledge knows that when the captain says, we take his word, but like just for understanding and clarity purpose, if you guys can explain.
Abdullah, you want to take that one?
Yes, Tom. Funny enough, I had this exact scenario on the 12th of March this year. It was a provincial 50 over game. And the so to answer the first part of your question, we take the captain's word. Captain tells you this is the side I'm starting from. That is which end we will start from. Usually, I mean, they have these conversations before play starts, so they know exactly which end they're going to bowl from and who starts the over. But you'll be surprised, as I found out in a provincial 50 over game on the 12th of March this year, where they decided to an end that they're going to bowl from. Batters then chose their end. Bowler was put his marker there. Batter was busy taking guard, and then the captain tells me, "Sorry, umpire, we changed our mind. We want to bowl from the other end." They had a discussion, and the wind was blowing strongly, and the reason, the thinking was they didn't want the last over to be bowled where the bowler was going to bowl into the wind and the batter is going to hit with the wind. That was their thinking, and they decided, no, we're going to bowl from the other side. So now, yes, we then the other bowler then marked his run up, and the batter swapped ends because I don't know how they decided who was going to face the ball, but this particular batsman, he was going to face the ball, so he had to go from the one end to the other end and make his mark again. Game hasn't started, so yes, we started a few minutes late, but yeah, we allowed them to switch ends. Tom, did I answer the question?
Yes, Dula, I think you did. I know of a question previously where the fielding side wanted to open the bowling with the spin bowler, but they were waiting to see which batter was going to face first. And if it was going to be the other batter, then they would open the bowling with a fast bowler. So I think for Neville's game management, we need to, as the umpires, if there is back and forth between the batting side and the fielding side as to who's going to open the bowling and who's going to face the first ball, it is the fielding side that needs to tell the umpires that they're going to bowl from this end and it's going to be this fast bowler who's going to open the bowling. And then the batters decide which end, who's going to face the first ball. It is not for the batters to decide first if who's going to face the first ball. It's for the fielding side to determine who's going to bowl the first ball, and then the batting side decides who faces the first ball. I hope that answers all your questions, Neville.
Yes, thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Great. Lechasa has come back to us. He is a level D scorer, and he says, yes, 12 batters will be on the score sheet, Abdullah, if there is a concussion replacement after the injured batter has already batted. Avishka asks us to explain in test match cricket, there's an update of the law which will be effective from the 1st of October 2026. Remember, Abdullah, we said if a wicket falls with less than 3 minutes before lunch or before tea or before the end of the day's play, then we take that interval immediately. But I think the change of law says that that last over will be completed. So if there are 2 minutes left and it's the fourth ball of the last over before the end of the day's play, if the day's play is scheduled for 5 p.m., so it's 16:58, wicket falls, fourth ball, we do not call over time and end of the day. We ask the next batter to come in. Abdullah, I haven't thoroughly read the new laws, but I think that is one of the changes that has been made.
Yes, Tom, that is exactly one of the changes that will be effective 1st October 2026. Over.
Thanks, Dula. Please, Avishka and everyone else, remember that the Cricket South Africa Level 2 course that we're going through is based on the 2022 Laws of Cricket edition that are currently in use, and the exam is going to be based on the 2022 Laws of Cricket edition. Ritvik says, sincere thanks to both our distinguished umpires for delivering such an insightful session on day 2 of the course. Ritvik, please join us for day 3 next week, Wednesday, same time, same place, same Microsoft Teams meeting link. Abi also thanks us for valuable time and insights. You're welcome. As well as Eric Wandera. Everybody's thanking us, Abdullah. There are more hands up in the meeting room. Rifat from Bangladesh wants to have the last say of the evening, as usual. Rifat, can you finally unmute your microphone? If so, the floor is yours.
Yes, Tom, I have finally. I have 2 windows open in my laptop. That's why I can't on my microphone. I discovered is later ask the question. Okay. And anyway, I have a question on result statement. In one-day cricket, I don't see this type of situation. But what will happen if this happen? Suppose batting side need 2 runs to win, and 9 wicket down, and a batsman not out 97. That's mean the batsman have to complete the century. He needs 3 runs and 2 runs to win the game. Suppose bowler bowled the ball and batsman hit played the shot and to the third man, and they complete the second run. But in the batsman mind he have 99. He try to take the third runs for completing his century. By that time he is run out last ball of the innings. What will happen in the result statement? Is it win the match or batsman all out or a team all out? I don't see it, but it will happen.
So Rifat, the team needed how many runs to win the match?
2 runs to win the match and 3 runs to complete a batsman to complete his century.
Okay, so as soon as they completed the second run, the batting team has won the match by however many wickets they have in hand, and that is the end of the match. So they cannot try and run for a third run. The match is completed immediately as the two batters make good their ground for the end of the second run. So
ball will automatically dead. That's mean after completing 2 runs, ball will automatically become dead.
That's correct. The ball automatically becomes dead when the match is concluded. So nothing that happens after that matters, nor will it be recorded.
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Happy?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Good. We've got another question in the chat box from Lechasa. While on choosing ends, how do umpires decide which end they're going to stand on? So Lechasa, they can simply decide, okay, Abdullah, I'm going to stand on the south end today. Please, will you stand on the north end? If they don't want to decide and they want to let toss to decide for them, what we do is we toss a bail. And if you'll remember from our level 1 lectures, a bail has got a long spigot and a short spigot. So what we do is we toss and the bail will land with the long spigot facing the one set of stumps and the short spigot facing the other set of stumps. The taller umpire will be at the end where the long spigot is pointing, and the shorter umpire will be at the end where the short spigot is pointing. That is generally how we decide which end an umpires are going to stand for the first 2 innings of a match. If it is 1 innings per side, we don't change ends. If it is 2 innings per side, we change ends after both teams have batted once. Avishka says, hi sir, I think, do you remember Sri Lanka woman and West Indies woman match? The ball going wide and rebound near the batter. She takes the ball and tries to return it to the wicket keeper. There was an appeal and it was given out. Is that fair or is that not fair? Avishka, we will handle that scenario in the second last lecture when we're going through the modes of dismissals. It was given out obstructing the field, and we will discuss why it was given out. And we will also discuss if it is fair or unfair. Okay. 2 more hands up. Piyush, are you still with us? If you are, please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours. Don't think Piyush is still with us. So Rifat, once again, you have the last word. Go ahead.
Tom, I have a related question. Previous one, I forget it. What is the rule for adding run? Suppose a team needed 1 run and batsman needed 100 runs, 4 runs to complete the 100 runs milestone. A batsman hit the place the shot and it's over gone for the boundary. boundary 4. But before reaching the boundary, the batsman completed 1 run. Is it will be the run added for the batsman for century, or after 1 run completed? What will happen?
What do you think, Rifat? Think about the answer I gave you for your previous question.
I think 1 run will add it, but 4 runs completed. I think runs will be added. Is
How
it
many runs?
1 run to win the match and 4 runs to need it to complete the century? Batsman hit the ball, goes over the boundary. It's sometimes it's maybe controversial that runs batsman complete the round, then over the match will end.
There you go, Rifat. If the single is completed before the ball goes over the boundary, that 1 run will count. That will be the single needed for the batting team to win the match. As soon as the match is concluded, what happens? The ball becomes dead. Nothing after that counts. So
If the batsman didn't complete the run, but ball gone for the boundary.
if the batters did not complete the run before the ball went over the boundary, then
But
the ball goes over the boundary will count.
Okay.
The batter will get his century.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much for all your participation and your interaction. This meeting has been recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel by 11 a.m. South African time tomorrow morning. We will reconvene for lecture number 3 on Wednesday, the 15th of April. Same time, same place, same meeting link.
Tom, before you end off, I just want to confirm that earlier you said we'll have Psycat on Thursday. We'll actually have him on Wednesday at 6 o'clock South African time.
Okay.
Wednesday the 15th.
Okay, Abdullah, I was just checking the messages you forwarded me between you and Psycat. It said that he would be traveling on the 15th, so he would be available on the 16th. So maybe just double check
Okay,
that.
let me double check with him. My understanding was he said the 15th, but let me double check. We will send out a poster to confirm the exact date and time.
Fantastic. That poster will come out tomorrow so that we gain some traction and create some hype and make sure that we have a full house for ICC Elite Panel Umpire Psycat when he joins us next week. So thank you very much for your attendance and your interaction. We'll see you all next week. Have a great weekend when it comes. Thank you and goodbye.